All right. Welcome, welcome to those tuning in. This is a special 4-part series, an interview series of the guest facilitators, the experts who are going to be leading some fantastic sessions at the upcoming Holy Woman Coronation Retreat that I'm hosting. I'm hosting it April 16th through 19th, and I'm very excited to share with you 4 of our guest facilitators. I'm also one of them. To give you a brief background about this Holy Woman Retreat, it is called Holy Woman. It's meant to have a double meaning, holy being sacred and holy being whole. And so it's an opportunity for women to come be with other women in sisterhood. And there's a great opportunity there to be witnessed and to create meaningful connection with other women. And there's a lot of healing in that. And specifically to connect to 4 archetypes of our erotic nature as women. And so the 4 archetypes are associated with the seasons, because all of my work is mapped on nature and the erotic intelligence and beauty of Mother Nature herself. And so the 2 seasons we are going to be embodying in this retreat are winter and spring. And the 2 winter archetypes are the surrendered submissive and the visionary enchantress. So today, our guest facilitator, Donovan, is going to be leading the session to support women in embodying the surrendered submissive archetype. So these are some strong words that I'm using, the surrendered submissive, and there's lots of ideas out there of what's surrender, and particularly the word submission, what that means. And there can be some negative connotation or negative representations in the media around this. So we're here to educate and provide some context for the value of embodying surrender and submission as a woman, and what that provides for you, for your sense of wholeness, your own sacred being, your connection to your sexuality, sensuality, your connection to your power. In fact, submission is a position of still holding power. It's not giving up power. It's just a different flavor of how we are sovereign and connected to our strength as beings, multidimensional beings. So yeah, Donovan, thank you so much for being here today. You have an extensive background with conscious kink and BDSM. For those watching BDSM, let me see if I can, bondage, dominance, submission, or no. And then I always get it mixed up with sadism, masochism and sadism, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it actually, 2 of the words change or 2 of the letters change their words every once in a while. Bondage, discipline, sadomasochism is one of them. Bondage, dominance, and I forgot how the change of that happens.
Yes.
So it's an acronym and it's an umbrella, so it encompasses a lot.
Mm-hmm. It really does.
Yeah, it totally does.
And so BDSM, people immediately think of dungeons, and that is one aspect to BDSM, and creating scenes and impact play, which using tools, and then there's also the energetics that we're talking about, that it doesn't necessarily include impact play or even touch at all. It can be literally just an energetic, more of a psychological arrangement, and there's a purpose for it. There's a purpose for it, which has to do with surrender and submission. And also because there's usually 2 parties involved with this play. There's more of a dominant role. What's that?
Not always, but
not always. Okay, good. Thank you. I'd love to hear more about that. But there can be a dominant role and then the submissive role. So yeah, actually, if you want to speak to that, tell me about if someone wanted to explore submission, there doesn't need to be a dominant role. Is that what you're speaking to?
Well, the dominant role doesn't have to be a person.
Got it. Yeah.
Archetype. It could be the divine. It could be nature. It could be whatever you feel in awe or in honor of as well.
Yes. Absolutely. I agree. Meaning that there's 2 poles, though. There's 2 energetics. Yes, but not necessarily has to be occupied by people, but it can be.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. So the opportunity for women, the women who are already a yes and attending this retreat, and we still have a couple, I think 5 spaces open for women to join if they're interested. Yes, is the opportunity to drop into this sacred space that you just mentioned of surrender and submission. So, what would be somewhat like someone who's new to this? What's something that you would want them to know that is actually available for them, and maybe to support them in removing any misconceptions or misunderstandings about what surrender and submission is?
Well, let me go back to the BDSM term, because I know you're trying to disambiguate and remove some charge so that people feel comfortable. Almost every archetype has a part of them that will fit under that umbrella. There is something about them that will fit under that umbrella. So anything that you try to embody will have some level that will fit on there. So it's nothing to like avoid or think negative of. It's just an exploration.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an exploration of all the possibilities that an archetype can entail, from the exalted to the darker aspects. They're all valid, they're all good, and they all have a safe space where they can be explored and we can become whole.
I love that. So a surrendered submissive archetype that we're going to be exploring, there's a whole range of like you said, exalted, down to even more like base, like maybe more primal expression or exploration. Is that what you're speaking to?
Yes.
Beautiful. And so is like the surrender submission state, does it always have to include like sexuality, or can it be?
No,
I mean, I have an idea, but I'd love for you to speak to that. Yeah.
Well, the archetypes from a Western ideology that we have that wouldn't be a sexual state. It might have a sexual element or a feel, and we've sort of bastardized it over, the last is like a monk or a nun. They might be celibate their whole life, but their surrender to something that's greater, to their beliefs, is a surrender position, and they find exaltation in it. They find a love in it. They find a freedom in it. So that would be like examples from a Western ideology. Every culture might have their own. Art is another one where you will surrender to an art piece. You might go into a museum and be overwhelmed with like a beauty or how much work somebody puts into something, and that would be a non-specific sexual. There's an erotic element to it, but it's not sexual. And another space that's coming up for me is flow. Is when you get in the flow of dance, or you get in the flow of your gift to the world. Is a version of surrender where you're not holding back. You're sort of leaning in. And there's an erotic element, but not necessarily a specific physical sexual element. So those might be some examples right off the top.
Absolutely. And I know when we were talking earlier, you mentioned I love all those examples you gave. And another one we talked about was nature.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, seeing the Grand Canyon or a beautiful sunset, and just that feeling of kind of dissolving of
yes.
There's a feeling of beingness, like and there's a way that you almost blur, like yourself, who you know yourself to be, almost blurs and merges, and I really think that's the opportunity in any position of surrender and submission, right? Like that's the opportunity is dissolving and becoming nothing and becoming everything.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of what we're talking about goes more to the surrender aspect than the submissive aspect. So it would be good to separate those, at least for this first part of the conversation, so Beautiful. That people, or that allows a sort of a dropping into each one. So once you understand where surrender can be outside of a specific sexual act, then the submissive can sort of flow along with it. That might be
Sure.
one way to look at it.
Yeah. So yeah, there's ways moving into submission that that are really maybe readily accessible to people that people are already submitting to. So we give examples of surrendering to something that has you in awe, and then submission. We talked about, you know, the willingness to accept instruction and to be led. And so for many people, that looks like group fitness and exercise, like yoga classes, where, you know, for me, I'll speak for myself that one of the things I loved about getting on the yoga mat was it felt like I could just drop into my body and be with my body for maybe the only time that day, for that hour. And I didn't have to think about anything or control anything or have anything figured out. All I had to do was listen to what this teacher said. And it was such a relief to be like, okay, just tell me where to put my foot, tell me how to hold my body. And there's a relief that comes in that obedience for me. And I think for many, if you look at the numbers of people in yoga classes and you know, other things that are similar. So what would you love to add to that?
Let's see, my teacher recently gave, or one of my teachers recently gave the example of what surrender and submissive is. It's the same energy of when you enter a sacred space. It's not an aggressive, it's when you're overcome with like awe and respect and the energetics of everything that's there. And once you do that, then as you said, you know, there's a certain rules. There could be rules. There could be ritual to follow. There could be, you know, a way to honor. You know, honorifics are really big around it. So when you do it in the BDSM realm, you might call somebody sir. You know, and so that's just an honoring of that ritual space. That allows you to drop a little deeper into, you know, what that polarity and what those rituals create. And we all have that in our lives and everything. When we call our parents mom and dad, there's a ritual around that. There's an honorific, there's a surrender into that. And sometimes it's based on love. Sometimes it's based on just honoring and respect. Sometimes there's something else there, like a self-exploration. So that's some of the aspects. It's much greater, but that's similar to the conversation that we're having.
And this brings up, like, there's a submission to it feels like an authority or and so I think this is where it can get a bad rap, or, you know, people have had negative experiences because when power dynamics are executed unconsciously and power is executed over, that would be a kind of dominance that isn't based on respect or something bigger, right? There's something happening there that does feel sticky.
It can, yes.
Unless people agree to it, right? Like there can be an actual conscious way to play with that. I want to name that too. But I think a lot of times what people, when they think of negativity around these power dynamics, it's because it was done non-consensually and unconsciously and not in a way that was agreed upon. And so in a safe container, right? And so the opportunity for this is to actually rewire maybe some of those negative experiences.
Beautiful. So
right?
beautiful.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to actually feel the care of authority, to feel the deep love of authority that maybe you haven't had before.
That's one aspect, but that's also going into an ultra light and airy and like love bubble, which that doesn't, you know, you have, that's there and it can be appreciated, but you have to in a lot of these explorations you have to go beyond that, because there is a lot of dark aspects. We do bring up things that might be hard for us to feel or hard for somebody to hold, but those are beautiful and those might be right. To go back to your last point, one of my teachers mentions that we only have examples or community examples of non-consensual domination. So that's what we automatically think of. That's what we automatically sort of approach, and that's what we become resistant to or put up boundaries for. If we feel into it, there are a lot of aspects of consensual domination, and that's what I sort of explore, in what is offering people to be able to experience and surrender into a deeper part within that consensual aspect, whether that consensual aspect is just yours. For example, in nature, I'm going hiking. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm having a really bad, every time I go to Thanksgiving with my parents, it goes bad, but I'm going to find my spot of growth in it. So it can be something like that.
Or you put yourself in like a crunchy situation,
on purpose,
and then like discover what there is to discover there. Like, how can I remain connected to the core of me and maybe stay open while also navigating this?
There's one of the things that authenticity, at least my definition that I use, is nothing but habits and patterns. And the majority of those habits and patterns are given to us by either our culture, our family, our experience. And so a lot of them aren't our choices. So to break out those and recreate our habits and patterns is something that you kind of talk to, or at least what the base is some of these dynamics and some of these sort of technologies. BDSM is one of them. It's a way to explore what those habits and patterns and find the ones for yourself. So, and bringing it back to surrender and submission, is we're taught, don't give up, don't do what a man says, or don't do what your boss says, or go against the grain, or things like that. And those were really taught to us, and by well-meaning people, and we might respect them. But for me, it's like, what does that actually mean to me? Why am I resisting? Am I resisting because it's something that feels bad in my body, or is it something that I'm resisting because I was told? Or I have a trauma against it. And then once I have that choice, it's a power.
Yeah, I'm hearing like choice, and I'm hearing identifying what's actually yes, like a yes for you, instead of kind of getting all these projections of what's a yes and a no, and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, how do I want to feel, how shouldn't I want to feel. And I think this is an opportunity to actually just go, wait a minute, how do I want to feel? Maybe it does feel good to receive like conscious pain, right? Like to receive impact or a sting. Like maybe that does something for me.
Or to be told to sit in the corner for 5 minutes. Right.
What would that provide? And I mean, we could talk about this for hours, right? Because this really gets into some deep stuff.
Yes.
So
and
I think,
me just saying, go sit in the corner for 5 minutes. Whoever's on, part of them are like, no fucking way am I going to do that. And the other ones are like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, I totally hear that. And so there's something about, we don't have to get totally into it, but there's this piece of humility. And we talked about this a little earlier, of like the line between humility, humiliation, like humility, it's very much that surrendered state, like that state of awe, right? Humble, like I'm nothing and I'm everything. And then the humiliation comes in, which for me has a little bit more of a kink feel to it, or more sensation in the body of like a flash of maybe I feel so exposed, or I feel stupid, or I feel something along those lines. But there can be a liberation in that. And that for some people, they might be like, what? How could that possibly be liberating? That just sounds like mean or cruel. And there's a whole range of playing with the humiliation. But the most mildest way is like a simple posture of releasing control and in receiving direction, but particularly in a way where maybe your body feels exposed, or you yourself feels vulnerable
Yes.
to the other. So can you maybe speak to that and what's available for someone in that position?
Well, that's really interesting that you brought up that, because I think that might be contextual and cultural, because in a posture, I don't necessarily automatically go to like the feelings of humiliation with that. Some of the openness in, like, if you're naked or you might have some vulnerable spots, there's like a vulnerability, but not necessarily a humiliation. But you speaking to it, I totally understand that now. And I totally can see how that affects certain people.
Yeah. I mean, just to drop in like an example to make it real for people if they're tuning in, because I'm such a yoga practitioner, and I think so many people can relate to yoga at least a little, because it's so mainstream.
Yes.
You know, poses like Supta Baddha Konasana. That's the one where you put your soles of your feet together, you butterfly your knees wide, and you butterfly your legs open. So there's this feeling of exposing your genitals. I mean, you're clothed in yoga typically, but your chest is exposed. Like the front line of your body, our softness is exposed,
Open.
and there,
Yes.
yeah. So there's a feeling of vulnerability, and that can be humiliating in the sense of like, I'm so exposed right now. That in itself,
Nice. Yeah.
even if it's kind of benign or mild.
Yeah.
That's just a relatable example. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is some examples of, through posture and some other exercises. So posture, I won't put it under the humiliation because that would be individual to the person.
Right.
But submission and surrender, one of the simplest exercises that can be done is with outside of this realm, which almost everybody, especially our audience, has experience with, is through yoga or facilitated meditation or following a ritual within a spiritual context. Those totally touch on the surrender and submissive part. Within BDSM, using postures, leading somebody through various postures of kneel, and open your legs a little bit, put your palms up, open your chest, breathe deeper. There's a surrender and there's a submission in each of those aspects where you're going through, I don't want to listen to this person, or, oh, that's uncomfortable, or there's, I don't want to do this. And to feel into each of those and say, no, I'm choosing to do this. I'm going to do this because this person, whoever's in front of me, the Dom asked me to, or whoever's facilitating asked me to, and I'm going to sit here for a second and just feel into what it is and what it feels in my body. That's like a very simple and one of the first exercises that I would lead somebody through. And one of my teachers also says, that's the first exercise in BDSM. It's just postures.
It is. Yep. Yep. And what I imagine somebody might be thinking is, why, how do I know that the person giving me instruction, what they're stating is for me? Like, it's not just for their own like serving, and like they're not even considering me. Like,
that's what makes the surrender a power position. You're doing it for you. They might, and you can get into like the wheel of consent and why something's for me or for them, or you can dive that deeply if you want to, and that's the way your brain works. But in a surrender position, you're always doing it for you. No matter what I ask you to do, you're doing it because it might feel good, or there's a liberation, or there's an openness, or there's some place to see. So first off is intimacy with self, is surrender to self. It's always for you.
So what's the Dom doing it for?
The Dom, you can go into that if you want to as a submissive, and you can say, part of my get off is seeing how I please my Dom, or please whoever's telling me what to do, the facilitator. Part of my get off is that. Part of my get off is going against something that might be a little crunchy. So that's the first one. The Dom could, or the facilitator or the Dom can be a power position where it's like, I get off on telling somebody what to do. I get off on seeing who I'm leading through, like their levels of surrender and their levels into their subspace. I might get off on like playing it, the whole scene like a music, like it starts to flow and I start to get, for myself, I start to get that same joy that when I would play music, I start to see, I play percussion. And so I've had spots in my musical journey where it's like, I just watch myself play. I don't even know that I'm playing. It's just, I'm watching the music come through me. And when I have a really good scene, it's the exact same thing. Who I'm playing with, you know, that's the parlance in this, or the words used, who I'm playing with. It's like, I don't even know what's happening. Their body is telling me what they desire. And I'm offering back to them, and there's these subtle adjustments, and it's just so fucking beautiful. And it's like tango. It's like, why does a man lead in tango? It would be the exact same thing. Or what? I'm sorry, I used the word man. Why does that archetype? Why
the
does
leader?
Why does it lead? You know, could be man, could be woman, could be anything. It's, what do they get out of it? And I would get the exact same thing that a lead in a tango.
Yeah. What I hear is that there's liberation for both, and they're both committed to whatever that liberation is. And then then the container is then created to honor that and to experience that or explore that.
Yes. There was an explanation that I just heard about what a scene is the sub is trying to go to subspace. The Dom is trying to go to Dom space. Whatever facilitates that in the scene, regardless of whatever toys are used or whatever energetics, is what you start adding. Those are the flavors that you start adding. Those are the spaces you want to go to.
Beautiful. So I think this gives, there's so much more we could dive into, but this gives a really broad sense for people of, surrender, submission, power play dynamics, and what's available. And overall, like the thread that runs through it all is what I hear is like sacred liberation. It's like, that's what's available for you. If any part of your body vibrates or experiences something listening to this conversation, there's probably something for you.
Even if it's crunchy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It could be like a negative feeling. It might not be pleasant, but it's like a response, like something's happening inside me. You might be getting hotter. You might, whatever. There might be, something for you to explore in this. And so lastly, for the women, I'm just so excited for them and what they're going to get to experience with you, Donovan. It's going to be so special and just really beautiful. It's like art. It's like creating art, like you mentioned. And so lastly, how do you play with bondage? Because that's something that you specialize in. And so can you speak a little bit to like what someone could expect generally with rope play and bondage and what's available in that along with?
Well, bondage is a whole scale. And so you have psychological bondage, you have physical bondage, you can go into pain, you can go into pleasure. The simplest goes back to the other one is sit in the corner. There's a form called single pole restraint. Put a pole in somebody and say, you can't move around that pole. And some people just go into these internal states. It's like, don't tell me what to do. I can't go around it. Oh my God, maybe I can put a finger around it if they want to go into their brat space. So there's some psychological aspects around it.
It's restraint.
Yeah, it's restraint. That's like some of the mental stuff is just putting up a challenge or a mental restriction or something like that.
Yeah, and then immobilization.
Mobilization. And then in the physical aspect, one of the things, like one of the forms of rope that I do is called meditative bondage. Is you sort of go through mantras as you're going into meditation, and you might put intentions in each knot, and you might have somebody go through the chakras as they're being bound, and so there is an anchor created in each spot, and so they're sort of forced to be constrained by their own intentions and their own energetics. They might be able to move. It might just be a rope laid without actually, or not, but it allows the body to sort of release something and to take in something. And then you can go further where you can like make it difficult for an arm to move, and then somebody can explore like what that means to them. It might bring up memories. It might release something. It might like say, allow something to come through that they've been fighting against, or holding them back, all the way to complete restraint, where they have to put trust into other and something greater than themselves.
Wow, so it's so many opportunities.
Yes.
I mean, I immediately, when you talked about the intentions, what came to mind was just kind of surprisingly just, people creating intentions at the beginning of the year, and how that can feel binding, or like, I have the discipline to follow through on my intentions. And there's a way that this is a very specific practice that in a way feels unpleasant to my ears, but has so much opportunity to actually free myself from the larger thing that's actually binding me.
Yes.
It's like the being bound helps me actually be free from the larger thing that's actually been binding me this whole time.
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah, it can. And when some people make that connection within whatever the play is, it's amazing, the release in tears and just exaltation that can come through once in one of the spiritual paths I follow is what is touched can be released. What is touched, what's acknowledged can be worked with.
Yes.
The only path beyond is through. And so BDSM is one of those ways to go through in a way that you can actually control.
Yeah.
The sub is the power position. The submissive and the surrender is this power position in all this. They can say when a scene stops. They can say what flavors of the scene are. They can say what exploration is. You can give that, you can offer that to a dom and say, I don't want to make any decisions, you do everything. But in the underlying thing, they can always say, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And everything stops. It's a power position, totally.
It really is. It's so much choice. And that's confronting and liberating. And so, yeah, it's like purposely trapping yourself. So you have to confront yourself
Yes.
for your own liberation. And it's the same for both parties. So I really see it when I spoke about it being loving before. That's what I really mean. Because it might not be like light and lovely.
Yes.
It might be really crunchy and awful, but that's why it's so loving, because it's so it's like devotion to liberation. And I think that's one of the biggest gifts we can give each other and ourselves.
Partner practice, whether it's BDSM or sacred sexuality or tantra or dance, is you're in partner practice because your partner can help you go somewhere that you can't go on your own.
That's right. That's marriage.
As well. And so that submissive and surrender is allowing that knowledge and that to come through is, I can't take myself here. This is really uncomfortable. This is, that space that you can't go to on your own is a weird, strange space. Sometimes it's beautiful. Sometimes it's scary, but this partner, their job is to take me there.
It's so sacred. That's so sacred. And so I just really honor you for that devotion and that art that you create for your liberation, and for the liberation of those that you dance with. And I'm really moved by that. So thank you. And I'm really looking forward to, thank you. And I'm looking forward to this retreat and experiencing you myself, and for the women who get to experience, your work and the whole field of this. Really, it's like the field that you're bringing, the energetics, the devotion, and the art that you're.
Thank you so much. And thank you for putting this together. It's a beautiful exploration. And the more consciousness that can be brought in these areas, the more sort of, as you said, liberation that's available. It's more, we can bring it into our future. It's not just an immediate high or an immediate, high sensation. It's something that we can bring forward with us.
Yeah, it goes, because it's deep. It's, yeah, it's going to touch on something that will change your life. And so, yeah, to make it really real for people, moving beyond, or how to allow that experience to inform your life or to change you is, this could support you in being the person you want to be in your marriage, or it could, support you in being the person you want to be at the workplace, or realizing that actually I want to leave this job or this marriage and I want to recreate who I am. And so this is a practice of, it's really discovering who you are. Right?
Discovering who you are, and also a practice in flow, and finding that flow in your life and how it can connect your life, in your personal, and how you can connect it into life, into your environment.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're living day to day in like a really alive, emergent, connected to the pulse of life.
It's hard to do it day to day, but you have the reminder there that's brought on by this retreat that you can always settle back into.
Yeah. Becomes a memory in our bodies too.
Hence
the embodiment work. Yeah. Love it.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you so much. So for those of you who are like, I think I want that, I'm scared, or that just sounds amazing, or whatever is coming up for you around this conversation, you're welcome to, ask questions in the comments below if you're open to doing that, or you can reach out to me privately, and ask any questions about this retreat or about what Donovan and I had a conversation about. So if you are interested, it's April 16th through 19th. I'll put the link to register below. Early bird pricing is available until Tuesday, March 1st. It's $2,500 to participate, and it's all inclusive, includes your stay for 3 nights at our beautiful Airbnb with a pool and a hot tub. It's really well appointed, and workshops with 4 of our guest facilitators, as well as sessions with myself that I'll be leading. So it's a pretty potent and powerful opportunity if you want to step into your erotic nature as a woman and have that touch all the areas of your life where it would make a difference for you. So thank you again, Donovan, for being here. Thanks for tuning in, those who tuned in, and we look forward to hearing from you and having some of you join us at the retreat. And that's all for now. So stay tuned. Yeah, stay tuned for our next interview, which will be coming up later this week. And so stay tuned. Okay. Can't wait. Bye. Thanks, Donovan.